Welcome everybody to our council meeting of the 31st of August. If we could all please stand for our opening karakia. Te taua mai i runga, te taua mai i raro, te taua mai i roto, te taua mai i waho, kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, hauri e, hui e, tae ki e. We have apologies today from Councillor Simpson. If I could have thank you Councillor Mawson and Councillor Crown. All those in favour please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Do we have any conflicts of interest? No. And a very warm welcome to Kerry Anderson from the Napier Family Centre, who is presenting to us in our public forum today. And I'd invite you to come up to the front, Kerry, and lovely to have you here with us.
Ngā mihi nui kia koutou, ko Waio, ko Kerry Henderson toko ingoa, ko Tumawaki of Napier Family Centre. I'm Kerry Henderson and CEO of Napier Family Centre, a fortunate position I've held now for 3 years. Time flies when you're having fun, they say. And it has sure been a fun 3 years. I thought what might be useful today is just to take you through a general overview of our services. I think a lot of people know who we are, but not necessarily the depth and breadth of the services we offer. So I'm going to do a bit of a speed date session on that today, talk challenges, and then happy to take any questions. Oh no, that's not a good start, is it? I just had to click the button. I can see us there. What button am I clicking, team?
Scroll.
Oh, scroll. There we go. So we were established 40 years ago. We're actually celebrating our 40th birthday this year. Watch out for the invite councillors. We're going to have a little party with cakes and cupcakes. And we are a not-for-profit, community-based organisation. Our aim is to bring hope to people in whānau across all of Hawke's Bay. So we do have services across Napier, Hastings and in central Hawke's Bay. Our main 5 areas of work are psychological and counselling services. That has been a particularly growing area of work since the cyclone. Financial capability services, commonly known as budgeting, family support work with social workers, a large range of family educational programs, and 2 early childhood services. Bright Futures, where we have visiting teachers supporting educators in the home looking after tamariki, and a centre in Barker Road opposite Miriwa School called Sunny Days. So our ability is we are very holistic and can deliver a lot of wraparound support to whānau. Oh, wrong way. We agreed a strategic plan last year, which we're pretty proud of. It was 2+ years in the making, and that has now centred on 4 PO of work for us. We're commonly referring them to the colours because it is easier, although this one looks quite green. Yeah, it is. Oh yeah, it looks more yellow on the screen. Bicultural commitments and cultural diversity is our first PO. Grow and diversify revenue, ensuring financial sustainability, pretty important being a poor NGO. And recognising and investing in staff to feel empowered, and use of information technology to enhance improvement in services. So everything we're doing now is lining up into those 4 PO with our key founding statement, Te Awhina Te Aroha, to help us to love, along with our values guide us on our journey of being of service. Our workforce, we have around 100 people that contribute time, talent and energy over 2022, because we're still finalising our financial report and annual report now. We had 51 employees, 35 FTEs. A lot of us are working parents or grandparents ourselves, so quite often we are walking alongside whānau on their journey. And have good empathy and understanding of the challenges of current society. We have 37 volunteers, including our volunteer board and subcommittee, and around 19 contractors. A lot of those are our Bright Futures educators. Who we serve, we're open door policy for anyone that needs support on life's journey. We have increasingly seen, I guess, the working poor coming through our doors needing help with budgeting, as an example, with cost of living crisis, the rise of interest rates. We don't want to be seen as the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. We're really keen to start working on strategies that are more sustainable to empower whānau to be the best version of themselves. We generally support over 2,000 people a year across all of our services. Last year and this last year we've just had, the last 2 financial years, we're seeing an increase with food and food sovereignty becoming an issue. Over 300 people last year were supported with kai parcels through us, and we only do that 2 days a week. As an example, June this year, I think, was our highest at around 38 food parcels, which is generally our December numbers. So we are seeing some trends coming through in that space. And we have around 150 children enrolled in our early childhood services across both of those services. Our Building Financial Capability team, they run a very great service. Over the last year, we saw over 800 new clients coming through our door with close to 1,500 sessions. Over 347 food parcels delivered over that year. Insolvency is becoming more common for people as well. So last year, 35 clients took insolvency. We actually have 2 insolvency experts within our tari, and they support that whole journey, working through, if that is the last choice, we always try to work with other options first, and over $18 million of client debt last year. A significant trend we have seen is 1,075 children were living in homes of our families that were in financial distress. That figure doubled from the year before, and I suspect we're going to see that same trend again. We do also celebrate in Christmas cheer, and last year, just across our service, around 300 people had a brighter Christmas because of the work that's done over Christmas cheer. We turn into Santa's Grotto, a lot of us turn into elves and put support in, and it's an amazing time of year, but it does also show the significant hardship that is out there for many whānau. Counselling, as I said, is a growing area for us. Last year we had about 1,900 counselling appointments booked, but quite a few of those ended up being cancelled over the year of COVID and cyclone. But we are seeing an increase of this service in particular, and right now we are trying to get more counsellors on board to meet the demand out there, particularly following the cyclone. Following the cyclone, we were fortunate to get a grant from Red Cross, and we are offering free counselling for cyclone impacted people. So if you know anyone that needs support, they can ring us or go through onto our website and we'll put free counselling in. We are seeing an increase in trends of couples counselling needed, and youth counselling and tamariki counselling as well. And the school system isn't keeping up with the demand out there either. Our family work, we commenced 99 clients last year, but we had actually 222 referrals. A lot of those referrals didn't meet our criteria, and a lot of them were significant family harm. Despite that, over 62% of Napier and 50% of whānau that we did bring on to service delivery had experienced family harm. So as you know, that is quite a horrible statistic that we are having in our society right now, and 2 out of 3 of our clients were single parents. Quite often, once they've entered in to put social work support in, we will also work with them on other family education courses. So last year we delivered 14 courses to over 50 children and 93 adults, a range of courses: women's wellbeing, positive parenting, step parenting, incredible years autism, incredible years for parents, and a couple of tamariki courses, Emerge and Just for Kids, which Napier City Council have contributed financially to support those programs, and we're grateful and really appreciate your support. A lot of feedback from parents is, they're great courses, most of them are 5 to 8 weeks, and it just really sets up with some tips and tricks and builds that village really. Part of our kaupapa is it takes a village to raise a family. We all need support, and we always try to put that village of support in. Many of our educational programs, they go on to carry on and supporting themselves as well, which is great to see. Our Bright Futures, so we have an office in Central Hawke's Bay as well, and our main office is in Onikawa. We're up to about 100 enrolled children now with 21 educarers. It's nice, it's low ratio early childhood care and education happening in the home, so it's quite good for children that might need some extra individual one-on-one support, and it's still licensed and regulated by the Ministry of Education as well. Just went through the Education Review Office last year and got a glowing report, which was great, and it does support a lot of our objectives that we're trying to achieve across our early childhood services. Sunny Days also just went through Education Review Office this year, once again with a glowing report, and we have a high portion of Māori and Pacifica in our service, 73% Māori, 11% Samoan, so we do offer a very cultural diverse program, making sure each whānau's culture is represented across our service delivery. Fundraising, this is always the fun one. A lot of our funding is contribution funding from government, so we have to hustle a lot for fundraising. Last year we had to raise over 400k to basically get an equilibrium budget. So every dollar, every cent we stretch across into service delivery. Those that have been into our tari, we've got 3 different lots of carpet because we actually invest in service delivery. And you know, that is something as the client needs are greater, I'm really mindful of to make sure that we've got enough to support the service delivery that is needed out there. Community engagement, we always try to be out and about in our community. Thankfully now with the COVID restrictions being lifted, we feel we can rise to the challenge more and be out and about. But we do work in prisons, Spring Hill Addiction for budgeting, community hub events. We talk to women's groups, institution parishes. We do bread run food parcels. We're part of the Safer Napier group, Safer Central Hawke's Bay group before school treks. And we do a lot in our community. And we always love to host councillors, MPs, ministers and other NGO groups. I'm one for collaboration, that we're going to be stronger and better if we work together. So we're very much an open door policy across a lot of our mahi. Which leads nicely into cyclone support. So following the tragic events of the 14th of February and beyond, we were quick to open our doors and host community days, and thank you for councillors that did attend. It was great to see a lot of you there. We brought in a lot of the smaller NGOs that didn't necessarily have, the ability to host events, and it was just really for people if they wanted to come in, have a cuppa, have a hug, have a kōrero, and try to refer them into services, because what we felt was a lot of people just didn't know where to go or what to do, and they just needed someone to talk to. So we hosted 3 of those events. We also were out in the community more. We focused a lot of support out in East Valley at Linden Estate with Greg, working with Nourish for Nil, dropping off jammies, dropping off kai, dropping off support, and way out to Porongahau and Central Hawke's Bay, dropping off supplies, and everywhere in between. We've appreciated that as part of having to be responsive to community needs. We can't expect community or just come to us, that we're trying to get out to there more. So we're also trying to do a lot more support in schools directly as well to support that. And I think for us, the cyclone has brought up some challenges, but also opportunities. But to fully realise those opportunities, we need to make sure we've got that support going forward. So I just thought I'd finish with some of the key challenges we've found in the last 6 months in particular. The top one really is sustainable funding. That many of the government contracts are just contribution funding. They don't cover the full cost. There's a current tender out for one part of the service delivery, and the government have said they're only going to fund 80% of that, with the expectation each service has to then fund the extra 20%. And fundraising is getting harder and harder each year given the economic crisis we're in. We're also finding a lot of whānau in greater hardship. They've got greater needs, the needs are more complex, and many are in service for longer. So a lot of our contracts rely on 4 sessions, then you're out the door. Actually, some of our social work clients are actually in service for 2 to 3 years, and we've got to walk alongside them. If it's a true holistic whānau-led model, we can't rush the timeframes, and we've got to do it in whānau time. So quite often we're working well and above and beyond the contracted service delivery because it's the right thing to do. What I found is following the initial part of the cyclone, the government were quite great with putting in some initial relief support, but it all had a time frame to be spent by the 30th of June to link into budget requirements. But, once the water recedes, there's a lot more mental health and wellbeing and challenges we've got. So the frustration has currently been, there hasn't been forthcoming funding for mental health and wellbeing to support the long-term cyclone response work. There's been some announcements, but the pūtea hasn't quite got out the door to community providers yet. So we're doing what we can, going into schools ourselves, hustling with philanthropic funders to ask for more. Lotteries have been great, Hawke's Bay Foundation, Red Cross, but we are relying on philanthropic funders for something that's a lot greater. I just want to leave with, we do have a long road ahead. The mental health and wellbeing needs to be supported and prioritised as part of all the recovery plans we've got out there, because if we don't have, he tangata, if we don't have the people, nothing is going to get done. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa.
Kia ora. And before I open for any questions, just want to say thank you on behalf of Council for the incredible mahi that you do. The support and services you provide to our community are absolutely vital. And certainly in the wake of the cyclone, the many things that you've been out there doing to support our community are much appreciated and much needed, and will continue to be needed, as you have highlighted. So we will certainly be continuing to advocate to central government to ensure that the appropriate funding is coming through to support our community, as I know you will be as well. So we can work hand in hand in that regard, Kerry. So thank you. So I will just open up for any questions from councillors. Councillor Bogue.
Thank you very much, Kerry. Great to hear all the work you're doing. It's fantastic. Just a couple of questions. You said a lot of people are in debt, which is not surprising. What are the main sources of that? Is it loan sharks? Is it council parking fees? Is it MSD loans? Where is that debt? Where does it come from?
A great question. It's quite diverse. Probably 3 to 5 years ago, we would have said loan sharks. We've actually done a lot of work with the Commerce Commission, and the Credit Controls Act has changed a lot of those requirements now to stop irresponsible lending, that they are supposed to come through trained financial mentors before the loan is approved. But a lot of it is now Afterpay, which has been largely unregulated. It's quite easy to get Afterpay after Afterpay. And so we're seeing that debt come through. And we also are actually seeing a lot of WINS debt coming through. Given the climate and the times, there has been a need, and WINS has gratefully been saying yes. But I don't know if whānau know that then that's a clock up on the debt, and how are they ever going to repay that? And I think it's just the general cost of living. Everything's gone up. Petrol, food, transport, mortgage rates. If whānau are in a rental, then that cost is actually getting passed on to them as part of a rent increase. And I think times are just getting tough out there for many whānau. And I think 2 years of COVID and then a cyclone has just probably exacerbated and sped up some of that need and financial distress out there.
And my other question is, Kirsten talked about the importance of us, working with you. Is there anything specifically or more that we could do as a council that would support your service?
I think the next plan that comes up around, if it's still happening, the phase 2 recovery plan. I understand there was a phase 1 recovery plan that was put together quite quickly as part of the comprehensive review. I had raised it with a couple of staff that community views weren't considered, and they said we will be considered for phase 2. So I think the importance of when we're developing, I guess as part of the Hawke's Bay Regional Recovery Plan, as part of the Wellbeing PO, to make sure community voice is there and support us with the ability to be sitting around the table having some of the kōrero, because we're seeing firsthand what's happening out there, and we're happy to be part of those conversations.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Kerry, for your presentation. Just talking about the free counselling for people who've been impacted by the cyclone, do you have any specific criteria for those people if they want to come and see you?
No, they just have to tick the box that they've been impacted. We're trying to create a really low barrier. We've actually also found someone might come in and think, no, I've been fine, and then actually 3 to 4 sessions in, the cyclone does come up. So we are trying to make it free, accessible, to have a no barrier access. I think what we've found is there's a lot of need out there. I don't know if you saw the recent article from the News Hub around a Pakowhai orchardist that said, if only I got counselling at the start, I would have felt so much better. But I did, and he's encouraging everyone too. So what we're trying to do is say there's a no barrier access. You don't even have to get a referral from your GP. If in some way it's exacerbated your feelings, and it might even be just driving. I live in Hastings, I work in Napier. Driving through Pakowhai or Clive each day has been a real toll. So it might have arisen in multiple ways. If you need support, we're here to support you, is the key message.
Thanks, Kerry.
There's no further questions. Once again, thank you so much for coming in to see us today, and wishing you all the very best with your future plans. And certainly, you're part of our Safer Napier group, so we stay connected via that. But any other ways that we can support as well, we certainly have an open door policy. So
we really value the relationship we have with Napier City Council and councillors. So thank you for your ongoing support. It's greatly appreciated.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thanks, Kerry. There are no announcements from myself. Is there any minor matters not on the agenda? Announcements by management? No. Okay, confirmation of the draft minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on Thursday, the 20th of July. If I could have a mover, thank you, councillor Bogue, seconded by councillor Crystal. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. And the draft minutes of the extraordinary meetings of council held on Thursday, the 3rd and 17th of August. Moved by councillor Price, seconded by councillor Taylor. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Right, straight into our agenda items, and first up I would invite Luke Johnson to present the Section 10A Annual Dog Control Report. And also warm welcome to David White, who I see is also here with us today. Trying to hide in the background.
Thanks, mate. Kia ora. The purpose of this report is to present the dog control policies and practices for the dog control registration year 22-23. This is a legislative requirement under Section 10A of the Dog Control Act 1996. And obviously, once adopted by council, this report will be submitted to the Secretary for Local Government and published in accordance with the Dog Control Act. Dave and I are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Question from myself. One of the things that I've noticed of late that does seem to have become quite an issue for some members of our community is dogs off leash. And, you know, we have our on-leash areas where people can go and let their dogs off their leads, but there seems to be still quite a high occurrence of people allowing their dogs off leash in areas that they can't. What is our process to deal with those situations? Obviously, if they're reported, because it's a bit of a tricky one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it brings with it quite a few complications. But we do conduct patrols in our on-lead areas daily, and particularly our more, more tourist type areas, and we just educate people. If we get consistent non-compliance with it, then we have other means of breach of the bylaws. But it is a constant challenge, and then you've sort of got to bounce it against the type of dogs that are offending in these areas, and it is a bit of a battle. But we find, people are quite happy to take a reminding and are quite compliant in the end. And there's a little bit of adoption of the new bylaws too, a bit of education around that throughout the whole city. So we've just been speaking with them and just getting compliance through that way. But I agree, there is a lot of dogs in that like that, but we are working on it, and hopefully it'll improve.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, certainly.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Price.
Just a question, do you think our signage is sufficient for these people and the publicity we've given?
Yeah, yes, I do. I think the signage is there, and also it's always a sort of a bouncing act between having so much signage that we can't see past it all. I think it's more people choosing not to comply. It's interesting, the areas we get the least amount of compliance are generally the ones you'd expect to get more compliance from, perhaps.
Thank you.
Councillor Bogue.
Yes, well, thank you for the report. Something that we really promoted last year was protecting wildlife, the dotterels and, putting restrictions around when dogs could be off leash. And that's sort of not mentioned anywhere here. I thought it was a very positive thing that's not mentioned in this report. And I did send something to you yesterday, you may not have got it, but a suggestion that be mentioned that I don't know whether we can change the objectives, but it says the objectives of the current bylaw are to enhance the safety of the public and children, and I wondered if we could add and wildlife, just to acknowledge that role that we now take in terms of protecting, seals and penguins and birds.
I'll just intervene here. So that's actually a question for governors, because that would be our decision whether we wanted to change the bylaw, and that would need to go through quite a process. But I agree, it's a fabulous suggestion and something that we could consider for the future. So thank you, Councillor Bogue. Councillor Gregg.
Luke, just a question. So the number of registered dogs has gone down from 8,088 to 7,590. Is there any reason behind that? I mean, are there actually fewer dogs, or are people just not paying the registration? Just wondering.
I think we most likely heard from our first speaker the good reasoning behind that. And I think it's been tougher in our communities for a lot longer than perhaps is being reported. And we generally bring about 1,000 registered dogs through by compliance, by being out there and roaming dogs and all those things. So it is tough out there, and people are prioritising, and particularly this year we've had a lot more of people that have always registered their dogs coming to us now and saying, look, we budgeted on getting the payments made before the penalty, and we're just really struggling to meet it. So we are working with these people, so we're very aware of it. I just think it's a reflection of that. We've followed up with about 20% of the dogs known that aren't registered so far this year, and that's certainly coming through strongly. It's not a refusal to comply, it's much more a budgeting difficulty. And for me, I think it's a bit of this licensing, the old-fashioned licensing of dogs in some regards, is it sort of moves it into a field of its own, and that's where people put it aside as a separate budget rather than dealing with it as a rate or something like that. So it's easier to ignore.
So a follow-up question for that then, for those people in that situation, are we offering payment plans? Like, I'd hate to think that we're actually slamming them with fines.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Payment plans are difficult
Yeah.
to manage, but we certainly do that. And we remove the penalty payment, and with the hope at the end of the day we'll get the dog registered. So, but, we're working as a team across the board from customer services right through to work with these people. It's important that we do, really.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because obviously there is a requirement for them
Yeah.
to pay it, but we do want to be sympathetic to their situation
I know
when
people
we
take
can.
the time to contact us, then
Yeah.
that's the bonus, yeah.
Just a follow-up question, how much is it to register your dog?
It's $129 before penalty, and 172, sorry, I think offhand, once penalty payment has been added.
Councillor Crown.
Thank you, through the chair. I calculated out that the number of complaints that you get is about almost 7 a day. And so that leads me to my question around what is the level of resource that we have working on this? So I think, the report shows sort of the breadth of service that is delivered through the activity. So, and it's a question that I get quite often from members of the public. So yeah, what does our team look like who's delivering all of this stuff?
So we have 4 animal control officers and myself, which, with the way the community has been of late and the sort of the difficulties working in some parts of the city, we work in pairs, so we have 2 teams effectively. I don't think we have a lot of staffing numbers, but we do get through it. Maybe we're more reactive than we'd like to be, but being reactive, you are in the community, so I think there's a balancing act there. I think we manage.
Yeah, well, you do a lot of work.
Yeah,
That's what the report says. So, thank you.
No further questions. Just one final comment from me. An area of interest we know with our community is the number of dogs that have been euthanased. So thank you for putting the additional detail in here to explain what makes up that number, because we did have a bit of a jump this year from 131 last year to 163, but really clear explanation as to what that number's made up of. So thank you for that additional information. And Jasia, thank you for all your hard work, full stop, as Councillor Crown has highlighted. We know that you're out there on the streets and you're doing a lot of mahi, so please pass on our thanks to your team as well, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any discussion before I move into asking for a mover and seconder? No, could I have a mover? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brosnan, seconded by Councillor McGrath. Would you like to talk to that?
Just very briefly, I think it's great to see this report come through always. Thank you, David, and the team. I think it's fabulous to see the work that you're doing, and I agree with the comments that were made around the additional detail of those areas of particular interest to community and media and things like that. It provides us a good overview. I wasn't expecting the explanation around the budgeting, which I think is something that we just need to be conscious of as governors, that our community is going through, that sort of the cost of living and everything, and how that flows into the responsiveness to our services, and licensing is obviously one of those. So thank you for drawing our attention to that. So I'm happy to receive and support the report, and thank you for the mahi.
Councillor McGrath.
Just through the chair, yeah, I get to see on a weekly basis the team in action, and they're a fabulous team, doing a great job for our community. Dave probably undersold it a little bit. The team, I think, is also responsible for feeding the animals in our shelter and keeping them safe while they're there, cleaning the shelter, and just managing all a lot of the admin side of things as well. I think they do a great job for our community in challenging times. So well done, team.
Are there any other speakers to the motion? So I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to our next agenda item, the Hawke's Bay Farmers Market exemption, and I would invite Steph Kennard up to talk to the paper, please. Welcome.
Morena. I'm here on behalf of the Hawke's Bay Farmers Market, who are applying for a one-day exemption to the Trading in Public Places bylaw. They are currently already operating every Saturday in the Clive Square area, but later this year in November they wish to celebrate their 20th anniversary, and by doing that they would like to invite the Sunday market, which operates out of Tomoana, to come and operate in Napier for that day instead. There's one of two dates, the 11th of November or the 25th, that's yet to be agreed upon. But the exemption is required because they need a greater footprint, and that footprint would encroach to the boundary line of Clive Square East.
Thank you. So in addition to inviting the other Sunday market along, will there also be an opportunity for any of our Napier retailers to participate in the market with the extended area?
Absolutely. I've been working with Napier City Business to around how we activate Emerson Street on the day as well, and also additional entertainment and those sorts of things as well to support it. So yes, absolutely.
Okay. So on that note, is there an intention to close off perhaps Lower Emerson Street for the day?
Emerson West would need to be closed anyway, just because closing Clive Square East will then shut off Emerson Street West to traffic. So it does lend itself to being able to be activated as well.
Oh, excellent. Councillor Bowe.
Just through you, Madam Mayor. I wondered about the need for extra parking because there's going to be more people, in that area. And I just thought, we have some good public car parks relatively close by, and I just wanted a little bit of publicity about that, perhaps on our Facebook page, just to remind people, because there's also the car parks over here as well that are not too far away, and people, outsiders, may not be aware of those.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great idea.
Any further questions? Any general discussion? I'll therefore ask for a mover and seconder to approve the closure of Clive Square East to allow for this. Thank you, Councillor Mawson and Councillor Crystal. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, I support anything that helps the vibrancy in our city, and 20 years is pretty good. So and it's quite cool to have the really popular one from Tomoana come over, and I'll be there myself. Looking forward to it.
Councillor Crystal.
As a regular participant and donut buyer in every Saturday, I think it's great to extend it. It really does lend itself to that Mission Concert weekend, because it'll just make Napier look even more vibrant than it already is. So, it would be really cool if we could do it that weekend, and great for the obviously the market stall holders if they've got a much greater audience. So, yeah, totally support it.
Any other speakers? I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks, Steph. Agenda item 3, Council's new strategic direction, and Talia Foster is going to speak. And Heather. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Kia ora. Over the last couple of months, elected members have been working on developing a new strategic direction for Napier City Council. This report outlines the new vision and strategic priorities that have resulted from this work. The vision is enabling places and spaces where everybody wants to be, and in no particular order, the 5 strategic priorities are financially sustainable council, a great visitor destination, spaces and places for all, a resilient city, the ability to thrive and withstand impacts, knocks and shocks, and nurturing authentic relationships with our community and partners. Each of these strategic priorities is supported by a statement which provides more detail on what this means for our city and council. And as we develop the long-term plan, there will be further detail around the objectives, actions, and actions that we will take to achieve those objectives, and the measures to ensure that we are monitoring and reporting back on our progress. The new strategic direction will take a key part in the development of our next long-term plan, while we ensure that all work council plans supports the achievement of these strategic priorities. For now, we're asking you to formally adopt the vision and strategic priorities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions? Didn't think there would be many. So, yeah, obviously we have over the last few months been working on this as governors alongside our team, and it is great that we've now got the very clear sort of direction set in terms of our strategic priorities, which will lay the foundation and provide guidance as we launch into our long-term plan process. So I thank you from me for everybody that's been involved. There's been some really good discussion and conversation, and I think the strategic priorities really do focus on what is important for us as a city and community. And I do look forward as we go out and engage with our community on our long-term plan, hearing their feedback in terms of how we've laid the foundation for our decision-making and prioritisation for our next 3 years here in Ahuriri Napier. So thank you to everybody involved. If there's no general discussion, I'm happy to move the motion from the chair and seconded by Deputy Mayor Brosnan, and I've already said my piece really, so I won't say anything further. Any further comments from you, Deputy Mayor Brosnan?
Yeah, I'd just like to highlight that I really resonate with the vision statement that we all came to as a group, and I enjoyed the process that we collectively used to come to that over those workshops. So, you know, for me, enabling great kind of spaces and places where everyone wants to be, that word enabling, I remember we put right up the front, because we talk about how we can't be and do everything for everyone, and that we have amazing community members, amazing groups, amazing culture, just an amazing community, and our job is to enable them to do great things in the great places we create. And so I get really excited when I talk about our vision statement, because I think it really is easy to embed in the work that we do. If we can focus on enabling those spaces and places, those parks, those reserves, those facilities, those that CBD, that community space, if we can focus on enabling people to be in those great spaces and places that we create, then man, does that just see our city thrive. So I'm really excited about moving into our LTP with this overarching vision that we are focusing on those places and those spaces and enabling people to be there and do great things and want to be there. So yeah, really supportive and excited moving forward.
Any further speakers? I do just want to highlight, we have changed the recommendation and thus motion slightly. Originally part A said as outlined in this report. To make it a standalone motion, we have just said as outlined below and then actually given the vision and the strategic priorities in Part A of the resolution. So just highlight that for everybody's information. But yeah, without any further ado, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Talia. Thank you, Heather. And following on, our next agenda item is the long-term plan update from Steph Murphy. So welcome, Steph.
Excuse me. Oh, you're going to turn off the screen at the back.
Welcome.
Good morning. I guess the purpose of this morning is just to run through the paper that was presented, and I'll take that as read. Sorry. Okay. In relation to the long-term plan, and nice to follow on from the discussion on strategic priorities and the new vision for council. So the purpose of the paper was just to outline a order in council that has been underway for the last several months and has been created as a result of the swirl legislation. What it does do is it temporarily amends the sections of the Local Government Act that relate to the long-term plan provisions, specifically for those councils affected by Cyclone Gabrielle. Subject to the legislation being passed on the 5th of September, it will will commence on the 5th of October. And essentially what it does is the amendment is that we will have a 3-year plan as opposed to a 10-year long-term plan. This is in line with the provisions that have been provided for in previous previous events. So, for example, Christchurch earthquake and Kaikoura earthquake, those councils were able to prepare a 3-year plan as well. So we are aligned with all the other councils included in this from a Hawke's Bay perspective, and it's really just to highlight that this is a process that we'll be going through. There is a provision, we don't need to opt in or opt out, we are opted in. However, we can make some amendments if we wish to, and one of those was in relation to the recommendations requested by the Audit and Risk Committee, that we have a 10-year focus for our infrastructure and also financial strategies. And other than that, the only other key requirement that has been removed is to have an external audit prepared by the Officer of the Auditor General. That will be replaced, of course, is removed, but we're proposing to have, and I'm recommending in this, that we actually complete a internal audit, which provides, I guess, council, but also recommended from Audit and Risk Committee to have that sort of oversight. So unless there's, and that's about it. So any questions? More than happy to.
Any questions from councillors? I think, we do appreciate that we've been provided this sort of, a little bit of a reprieve while we're still working through the recovery from Cyclone Gabrielle. It will ease, I believe, a little bit of pressure on the organisation, but not foregoing that we will obviously still be very committed to producing a quality long-term plan and considering those longer timeframes where we must, actually. So I think this has actually landed in a really good place to provide us with the ability to just free up things a little bit, but still be working, how we need to on behalf of our community for such an important strategic document. So, yeah. So if I could have a mover, thank you, Councillor Crown, seconded by Councillor Brown. Would you like to speak to that?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. You agree with all your comments. I love the thought and the consideration that's gone into making sure that we're not creating bottlenecks in the future when it comes to our planning, especially around those key things such as infrastructure and our financial strategy. So thanks to A&R for making those recommendations. And yeah, it's just a nice, tidy example of everyone working well together, I think, as the Mayor said, to land on something which is practical and the rationale is very sound behind. So thank you. It's all been said.
Any further comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 5, Easter Sunday Trading Policy Review, and we have Jeriel Sargent here to talk to the paper. Welcome.
Good morning, kia ora. Yes, this morning I just want to talk to you about what we presented about the upcoming Easter Sunday Trading Policy Review. So just a summary of what's already in there. So our current policy allows all retailers within the district of Napier to open if they wish. And we are now 5 years after the official adoption of our current policy, so it's time for us to review. For the review, we are required to undergo the special consultative procedure under the LGA, and we, under the Shop Trading Hours Act, we are required to choose one of 4 options, which is to keep it as it currently is with no amendment, to amend it, to revoke it, or to adopt a whole new policy. So we're recommending to maintain our current policy direction, maintain the status quo. And we're asking that the councillors approve the consultation documents that were presented and the draft policy as well. Yeah, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from councillors? Any general discussion? Deputy Mayor Brosnan.
My general discussion on this is that I support in principle Part B of the recommendations. However, sticking with my initial beliefs on Part A, I intend to speak against the motion when it is put. And just flagging that I think there is, as the report outlines, I think it's 46% of the Napier population in our census associate themselves as having Christian-based beliefs, and this is an important day in the calendar, and so thank you, Jeriel, for setting that out in your report. It is a significant day to a lot of people in our community, and I think for me, when I weigh up the significance of people in positions that are working in retail that may not necessarily have the responsibility for setting their own work calendar and which days they work. I know that the Act, in law, it is an individual decision whether or not you would work these days, but I think in practice there is a pressure that comes with the level of position where your role is set and your work calendar is set by a boss who may choose to open that day, and whether or not you have real discretion to work, I think in practice is different to what the law sets out. So just for my personal beliefs, I don't support us opening on Easter trading or the Easter trading policy. I didn't originally, and I want to maintain that position. So just speaking to that, thank you, Your Worship.
Any further general discussion? Deputy Mayor, would you like me to take A and B as separate votes?
I would appreciate that, thank you.
But also, first we will take Part A. If I could have a mover and seconder to approve the draft policy and statement of proposal. Thank you, Councillor Price. Seconded, Councillor Taraha. Did you wish to speak to that?
I respect the Deputy Mayor's view on this, but I think that it's come out quite clearly, we are a tourist town, and a lot of people would like to work on those days and get the money these days too. So you can argue that point to and from as to what employers make you do and what they don't make you do. But I think it's worked. It got a fairly sounding when we initially put it through, and so I'm in favour of staying the way we are.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Councillor Taraha.
Nothing further from me, thank you.
Councillor Bogue.
Yes, I would like to speak against the resolution as well. I was the other councillor, along with Councillor Deputy Mayor Brosnan, who was not in favour of Easter Sunday trading when it first came out, and I'm prepared to listen to what the public say with this time around. However, my reason was not religious so much, although I respect that it is a big issue for many religions, but it enables having that as a public holiday, guaranteed public holiday, enables a lot of workers to have a long weekend and get together with their families and do family get-togethers in other parts of the country or whatever. And I know there is the discretion there for employers to allow employees not to work if they so desire, but there is a lot of pressure on people to conform with what their employer wants. So yes, I did feel at the time that, and I feel now, that like Hastings, I appreciate that we are a tourist town, but that one day a year that guarantees a long weekend for workers, I think is very important, and I think it's good for our council to come out and acknowledge and honour that. Thank you.
Any further speakers? Councillor McGrath.
Through the chair, I'd like to speak in support of maintaining. Last time we did this, it was presented that New Zealand's biggest pastime, I think it was, is shopping. And if people are going to shop anyway, I'd rather they shopped in our city than chose online or offshore to do that. And we have a cost of living crisis in New Zealand, and it's probably not going to go away shortly. So an opportunity for some people or some kids to contribute to their household by working these weekends or holidays can only help.
Thank you. Any further speakers? I'll put part A of the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? And moving on to part B, which is to approve the public notification and special consultative procedure. Do I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Mawson and Councillor Taylor. Nothing from you, Councillor Mawson? No? Anyone else wish to speak to this? No? Easy. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much, Jeriel.
Thank you.
And next up, we have a update on the Mayoral Relief Fund distributions. And again, I invite Talia Foster up.
It's closer the first
Thank you.
Welcome.
So this is the second report back to Council to detail the distributions being made from the Mayoral Relief Fund. The fund has received over $430,000 in donations, with the majority of that being received from the Hawke's Bay Disaster Relief Trust, but also obviously a significant amount from the public coming in. We are still receiving some donations. Recently, there was a donation from Raumati Beach School where the children held a fundraising event and chose our Mayoral Relief Fund to donate to. Since the last report, there have been a number of distributions from the fund. These are distributed to community initiatives who have made contact with Council and have been approved by the Mayor and Chief Executive. The current balance of the fund is around $30,000. And it's been really nice to hear back from some of the recipients of the funds, what effects they're having on those who have been affected by the cyclone. I'd like to take the opportunity to read an excerpt from an email that I've received from Jane at the Dinner Club, one of the recipients, a few weeks ago. Last night we had our midwinter Christmas dinner, and what a night it was. I did go a little nuts, even curing a whole salmon from the South Island, but they're worth it. We had helpers come in and decorate the lounge with Christmas trees, and they played the Secret Santa Keep or Steal game with gifts scrounged, donated items such as a donation of 3 hours of a digger driver to barbecue tongs and spice rubs were well received. I did have a moment when one lady opened her gift and looked at me, eyes welling up. This is just so beautiful, but I no longer have a table. I told her I would hang on to the table runner for her until she has one. We have families who say this is the best meal they feed their kids each week because cooking is so hard in a caravan. We have couples who say coming along to meet others in the same situation is likely saving their sanity. We have single, some elderly, people who come and simply bask in the comfort of it all before heading to a makeshift home alone. It is quite beautiful, albeit very sobering. One night I was sitting chatting to a lady as she ate her dessert and she suddenly went quiet inside her head. She was plucking at the tablecloth and I just quietly asked, "Are you all right?" She teared up and said to me, "Jane, this is the first time I have felt normal in 5 months. Just the act of a meal and warm surrounds with the usual basics of a family home are gone for these people. It is quite an emotional ride at the dinner club, I tell you. And all of this is why we are so thankful for the Merrill Fund assistance you gave us." On that note, I'll hand over for any questions.
Thank you, Talia, and I do just want to take an opportunity to say thank you so much to everybody that has donated to the fund and enabled us to be able to support incredible initiatives like the Dinner Club. And it's wonderful to hear from Jane and others that have provided feedback to us about the impact that this funding is having to support members of our community. So, further to that, just there has been one other additional donation or initiative funding approved subsequent to this report being released, which is $3,000 for an event where Dr. Lucy Horney will be coming and speaking to our community. She's a leading international authority on wellbeing and resilience, and we're looking to have her come in, I think it's October, so I'm very much looking forward to that as well. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Crystal.
So for people that donate, like the Raumati School, obviously we send them an acknowledgement. Do we give them an indication where their money's going? How do we respond to the people that have donated?
That has been done through the Mayor's office. So there are letters going back to these people. I can't tell you off the top of my head what is in those letters.
We can follow up on that, and it might be that as the fund draws to a close, we could send out a letter to all people that have made donations, just outlining for them, the various initiatives that have been supported. Councillor Bogue.
Thank you very much for this. I wonder when we get our final report, if you wouldn't mind putting the dates in of when these grants were given. It just would be helpful for me to know, was it the 15th of February or the, 30th of July? And just one question about the Napier Christmas Chair appeal. I just wondered, we haven't started collecting for that yet, but I see we've made a donation.
Yes, so the organisers within Council of the Christmas Chair appeal did approach us to check whether there would be any possibility to secure some funding for the cyclone affected families as soon as possible, just so that they could secure that. They will of course be continuing to do their normal activities and collect and support as many families as they can. This one is just for...
So just another question. So the Christmas Chair appeal doesn't just go out to cyclone affected families. So this is targeted for cyclone affected families and they get it now as opposed to waiting for Christmas?
No, they will get it closer to Christmas time. It will be distributed at the same time as the rest of the appeal.
Deputy Mayor Brosnan.
Thank you. I just have a question around the initial setup of the fund, acknowledging that when there is an event, there's usually an outpouring of support, and I'm just turning my mind back to the process to set up this fund, and I suppose where my question is going is it worth keeping this fund open so that we could be more responsive, possibly open the fund earlier and provide a more locally led distribution point if and when a future event happens, rather than closing it off? I'm thinking it was a little bit of a process to get set up originally, and so I'm just looking for a little bit of commentary on if thinking has gone into that.
There are tax rules around it, so it does come into the requirements from the Inland Revenue, and I believe that requirement is that it does need to be set up for a specific event, which is why we did have the very convoluted full name of Napier City Council Cyclone Gabrielle Events February 2023 Merrill Funds. So in saying that, there's no separate bank account set up for the fund. It does all come through Napier City Council. That does mean that we can collect donations at any time for any event. The IRD setup is around whether donees can get the tax rebate on that.
So just supplementary to that, is this something that we could build into our responsiveness programming and thinking moving forward, that we are able to set something like this up sooner in any future events. Because just listening, I mean, it was very heartfelt listening to your reading of the Dinner Club message, and it just goes to show the real impact when local people and the mayor on the ground are making decisions around those distributions. It really does get right to the people where it's making the difference. So I'd love to see it built on for any future events.
Yeah, we can put some thought into how we make sure that it is as easy as possible in future.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Tareha.
Thank you, Kahika. I just wanted to ask about the Petani Domain basketball courts and the Brookfield Community CCTV, and where we're at with those applications.
The basketball court, I am aware is in progress, but I'm not sure how far that has been developed at the moment. There might be somebody else able to speak to that.
I think Councillor Price might have a little bit of information on that.
So I believe that the concrete was poured yesterday for the basketball court, and there's a lot of excitement out there, so, or half court it is, yeah.
Sorry, and we're looking at an opening on the 19th of September.
Oh, exciting. Cool.
Awesome. And on the CCTV, I believe they're organising the setup of a trust, and as soon as they let us know that that's set up and provide the details, we'll be able to hand over the money for that.
No further questions. Any general discussion? Could I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Price and Councillor Crown. Would you like to speak to that?
I think it's fantastic, and it's all been said, really. Thank you. Well done.
Councillor Crown.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, just quickly through Madam Mayor. A couple of weeks ago, the Chamber, I think with Westpac, put on a really interesting event at our War Memorial Centre, and they had a speaker from Christchurch come. He gave like 6 tips and tricks from the Christchurch earthquake and what they learnt about responding and about how the community sort of journey through recovery from a big climate or weather event. And I think that the fund and the stuff that you've shared today, Talia, really speak to some of the key points that he made. And I want to share them because I think that they're really important. It was that we should tell better stories. So when these things happen, we should share these little nuggets which actually uplift everyone. And not to speak for you, Talia, but I can't imagine there's a lot of like really awesome uplifting stuff that you get through the accounting department at Napier City Council. So, you know, to have these kind of things come through, it has that ripple effect out to everyone, right? And it's celebrating our community. So that was really important. Also that our brains, you've got to count the small ones because our brains automatically pick up on the stuff that hasn't been done. And I think, you know, if we reflect on social media and some of the comments that we get, you know, it's always what we haven't done rather than celebrating the things that we have done. So we have to lead that out, right? So we've got to count those small wins. And as I think, you know, the update around what's happening at Brookfield, having them set up a trust so that they can lead out on that kind of work and take control and be independent. Locally led solutions are amazing. They're what actually work because the people are engaged. They're not being told what to do. They've decided what to do themselves. So it's been amazing. I think that the suggestions by Deputy Mayor Brosnan are actually really fitting to make sure that as a council we can continue to just add a little bit and activate our community to provide those locally led solutions in these situations. The trick to us, and I think our whole entire community, is how do we hold on to this level of goodwill? How do we hold on to making sure that we're as connected as we have been following the crisis that we all went through together? And this is one of the ways that we can do so. So I just want to encourage people to hold on to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McGrath.
I think we're the lucky third on some of these. Just through the chair. This report to me is all about transparency. Our community have been asking for a lot of years, and especially through these funds. So it's good that it's here for us now, and our community can see where the money's actually gone. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers? No, I will therefore put the motion. All those in favour of accepting the report, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Talia. agenda item 7 is review of the electoral system for 2025 and 2028 elections, and welcome to Andrew.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, as set out on the paper, the Local Electoral Act allows council to consider every 6 years whether to stay with the electoral system that it has or whether to move to the alternative. The Act helpfully only gives us 2 choices, so it's not like we have to think too far for various other sort of out-of-the-box ideas. We've got the choice of either first past the post or single transferable voting. Since I wrote this paper, I can advise that Wairoa District Council has decided to stay with first past the post, as has Hastings District Council and also Central Hawke's Bay District Council. So they've all decided to stay with first past the post. Hawke's Bay Regional Council was meeting yesterday, and unfortunately I haven't heard what the decision was. If I was a betting person, I'd say it was probably sticking with first past the post, but that's just me. And, I'm not on the Hawke's Bay Regional Council, so I can't speak for them.
Quickly text him away. You on that, Deputy Mayor? Excellent.
If we were in the building, you can ask them.
Yeah. I have tried. As mentioned in the paper, one consideration is whether we would want to move to a different system to Hawke's Bay Regional Council, so that, and whether that would be a good thing in terms of voters then having to look to their voting papers and having to vote using 2 different systems, one for Hawke's Bay Regional Council, one for Napier City Council. So that's just a consideration.
We can confirm that HBRC went with FFP.
Very good, thank you. So, yes, happy to take any further questions.
Thank you, Andrew. Councillor Bogue.
Thank you. If we didn't make any decision at all, it says the status quo would stay with us. Would that be for 6 years or for 3 years?
6 years.
Okay, thanks.
And we still need to publish the fact that council decided to maintain the status quo.
Any further questions? I'll open for any general discussion. The officer's recommendation is that we either approve one or the other. Have some discussion.
I didn't feel that I could
completely agree. I think that does need to sit very much with us as governors, Andrew.
No one moves in the seconds that
General discussion, the opportunity is here. Otherwise, I will be asking for a mover or seconder for one of the options. Okay, I will move from the chair to remain as first past the post. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mawson. And look, I'll keep this very brief. For me, just, looking at the contents of the report, this is a system that our community is familiar with, they understand it. I think it is also very important to have consistency throughout the region, particularly with our Hawke's Bay Regional Council, considering that these come out in the same voting papers. Essentially, that's pretty simple. They are my reasons for supporting our status quo. Councillor Mawson.
Yeah, only one thing to add was, STV, we had the Hawke's Bay District Health Board was STV, wasn't it? And they had an extremely low voter turnout. Admittedly, it's not the same as local government or central government, but 5,735 votes total for the District Health Board isn't that much. So I think that there's an element of confusion potentially there, but yeah, I support the motion.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Taylor.
I'll speak against the motion. Historically, Emily Pankhurst took 40 years to get women the vote. And MMP was introduced in 1993. And many of you have only probably ever voted under MMP. And it was introduced to deepen the overall proportional representation. we wanted a parliament which was more responsive to different interest groups. STV, and I quote Gavin Beattie, the former Local Government Commission Senior Advisor, produces results that better reflect the preferences of more voters by ensuring fewer votes are wasted and can provide proportional representation for the significant communities of interest in the area. The significance or the guts of it is the quota. And I believe that there's a large proportion of people who haven't taken the time to understand how the quota system operates. If you take the eligible votes for an area, and I use Taradale, if you take the eligible votes for that and divide it by one more than the number of people required, i.e. there are 4 councillors, so it's divided by 5, that produces the quota number. And as soon as a candidate reaches that quota, they are elected. And the later votes are then transferred. So they're not wasted. So understanding the system is quite simple. Once that candidate reaches the quota, they're elected. And I refer back to agenda item 3 today. Our strategic priorities, nurturing authentic relationships with our community and partners. The Local Government Review recommends STV. We need to develop our relationship with our partners. That's the community and those who represent us and advocate for us at central government. Here is an opportunity for us to lead, and I hear around table quite a lot, why do we have to follow what Hastings and others do? Well, here we go. Here's a chance. Emily took 40 years. Let's put a stake in the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Any further speakers? Councillor Crown. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I love it when we're given an alternative view to consider, and still, you know, it's kind of our job to think of the other side of things. So, you know, I'm going to respond to some of the things that Councillor Taylor has raised. And in my mind, people still have the opportunity to vote. They understand the current status quo system. They actually have the option to take it to a poll. And I don't know of many binding polls out there at the moment, but our electoral system is one of them. So, you know, even if our community decide to rise up and go against whatever we decide today, they have that option. They can, you know, appeal to their fellow community members there. I think when we consider the recommendations in the Future for Local Government report, I think there are a number that I would put ahead of this, in my personal opinion, for priorities, especially around that deliberative and participatory democracy stuff, which I think leads to, or are the building blocks to establishing authentic and genuine relationships with our community and developing those. So, yeah, I'm keen for us to stick with the status quo at this point, but knowing that it will come around again. And some really great points raised, Councillor Taylor, so thank you. Councillor Brown.
Procedurally, if I speak for the motion, is that okay? Is it 3 and?
Yep. Yeah, it's not consecutive.
So. Oh, brilliant. So I really like STV. I think it is the way of the future, and I'd like us to move there for a lot of the reasons that Councillor Taylor raised, and the equity that's built into it. And I think what I like about STV is that it takes away some of the game of election. So we talk a bit when we're choosing which ward to stand in or whatever, talking about, if I stand in that ward and there's another person who's similar to me, then our votes will be split, and somebody who is maybe not as desired by the community could come through the middle and get ahead. And to me, that's the getting rid of that sort of anomaly in the current system is where I like STV. However, given that all of our region have decided to stay with FPP, on balance, I think we'll end up here, but for now, I concede that I'm happy to go with FPP.
Councillor Bogue.
Well, I'm speaking against the recommendation. I think Councillor Taylor covered a lot of ground, but I just want to put my little spin on it. It's been a long time coming, this debate. In my 16 years on council, I've been hoping that we would have the opportunity to debate this, and this is the first time it's actually been put in front of us. I was very disappointed to see the report in the paper yesterday, which made it sound like it's a done deal, that all the other councils are going to adopt, stay with the status quo. So it's assumed that Napier would also, and I don't think it is a foregone conclusion. I support STV because, as the Future of Local Government report says, it can lead to results that are more representative of electors' choices. So no vote is wasted. It's a method of ranking candidates. So I'm all in favour of us leading the way in this if we are the only council that's going to be doing it. The question about it being too hard and too complicated, in the paper that was presented to us today, it showed that there was a survey in 2008 asking people about the STV method of ranking candidates in the local district health board election, how people felt about it, and well over 80% showed that it was easy to understand and use. So I think we don't underestimate the intelligence of our voters. Ranking is not difficult, and if it gets a better result, then I think we should go for it. So I just see it as an opportunity for a fairer voting system of ranking and not wasting our votes. Wellington, Palmerston North, Dunedin, Christchurch and a dozen others use STV. Hastings, Hawke's Bay Regional Council don't, but surely we choose what's best for our people, and I believe that STV is that better choice.
Thank you, Councillor Bogue. Councillor McGrath.
Just through the chair, I support the current practice that we have. I've just written some words down here. We looked at with our community was trust, honesty, integrity. And I noticed some of the words today: spin, quota, wasted votes. That doesn't go far in my mind to tell our community that, hey, look, we want you on board. It starts becoming confusing and they start looking sideways at us. What are we hiding? Currently, it's very simple to work out. When we had the discussion as a council on defining SVT, half the room looked quite blank at the time. Being able to tick 6 boxes and understanding what and how you've done it are two completely different things. So I support what we currently have. Another part that I've written down here was SVT was more suited to larger groups of candidates as opposed to less. So if we were at large and we had 12 to choose from and we had 25 people, it's a little bit different from perhaps having 2 seats and 3 people running. So.
Thank you. Councillor Crystal.
Through the chair, I'd like to speak in favour of the motion. Palmerston North was quoted as one of the councils, and I've spoken to Mayor there about it, and he does not like it. So that was, but I'm just saying, as I did a bit of homework. And also, if you were looking for diversity, if our council is an example, we have more women than men on our council. We have younger and diverse range of people. We have mana whenua and, I think we're quite diverse, so I think it's worked for us here. So that is my opinion, and that's why I would like to stay. Yeah.
Are we not diverse? If there's no further speakers, and thank you everybody for sharing your thoughts and views, and it's clear this is something I think that we're all quite passionate about. But I will put the motion, which is to approve remaining as first past the post as our electoral system. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
No.
This is Bogan Taylor.
Yeah. Passed. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much, Andrew. And we have you remaining for the amendments to our schedule of committees and council meetings. Exciting stuff.
Possibly not something that people will have such strong views about. But all that we're proposing here is 3 additional meetings, 2 in September and 1 in November. As we've outlined here, one's for the proposed LTP amendment, one for the negotiation policy framework, and the third one for Easter trading, and then just a delay of 1 week for the Sustainable Napier and Future Napier committees.
Oh, is there a question, councillor? Or you were going to move? A question. Thank you. Second. Thank you. Anyone want to second? Councillor McGrath. Anyone want to speak?
Procedural, but thank you very much for the effort gone into this.
I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thanks, Andrew. Oh, and you're still with us.
Me again.
Just some more exciting stuff.
Yeah.
So the minutes of the Oamarangi Refuse Landfill Joint Committee, which we will take as read. I would invite either of the committee members if they would like to speak to the minutes. No? Nothing in there that you feel we need to have highlighted?
Well, just post-cyclone, the landfill was hit very hard, and they helped their local community when they could with the equipment that they had, and it's filling up fast with cyclone waste.
Thank you, Councillor McGrath. Anything?
Yeah, so the educational centre's almost completed, and they're working closely with Mana Whenua, and should be a dawn karakia ceremony coming up soon for that, and put the invite out to all councils.
Thank you.
Good to see everyone there.
Could I have a mover and seconder, please, to receive the unconfirmed minutes? Thank you, Councillor McGrath and Councillor Taraha. There's no further comments. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. And we now have the minutes from the Clifton to Tangoyo Coastal Hazard Strategy Joint Committee. So again, I'll invite the committee members to provide us with any updates.
Nothing particularly to note, just that they have now been confirmed, that they've passed their confirmation through the meeting. That they say that they're the unconfirmed minutes, but they're actually been confirmed since then.
Thank you.
Just a comment, a question, please, through you, Madam Chair. I think one of the most important points is that they are delaying any further work in this area, which is unfortunate, but did you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, so the work program has been delayed due to the cyclone and the overwhelm that Hawke's Bay Regional Council currently find themselves in, because it was quite a piece of work to transfer this from a standalone committee into being absorbed as BAU at HBRC. We're not stopping work though. There's a large piece of work that's still going on. Actually, it was twofold. So there's that, but there's also just the incredible amounts of consultation that the community are going through, and we were having to get consultation through the community for a significant thing in time for the LTP for it to be absorbed into HBRC's work program. So it's mainly around consultation not being able to happen in time for the public. So it's pushed right about a year, I think, and it'll be a standalone consultation and give it the weight that it deserves.
Thank you.
I think the staffing at the regional council was one of the big hiccups, really, to get it prepared for consultation.
But there's still quite a lot of work going on, and one of the main work streams that we're working on at the moment is Mataranga Māori and the engagement with Mana Whenua, understandably, Mana Whenua have been hit really hard in a lot of areas in the cyclone, and I think there's a lot of, I don't want to speak for them, but sort of what we're hearing is that there's a lot of urgent decisions and things to consult on and give their feedback on at the moment, and whereas this is a long thing, and so it just hasn't sort of reached the top of the pile. So yeah, it's something that we're actively trying to look at and how we do things better, but that is one of the challenges we're facing at the moment, and we need to do that right before we transition.
Any further questions? Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Thank you, councillor Price and councillor Brown. I'm assuming no further comments, so I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. And then we have our action points register as at the 16th of August, which again we will take as read. You don't have any further comments to add, Andrew?
I was just going to explain that the completed items that were noted last time have all gone, so this is just the updated one that will just keep flowing through.
Thank you. Any questions?
It's just a question about the completed items. Are they recorded anywhere else, or is it just?
I still have a record of them. I'm not.
No, I
Completely,
just,
yeah.
for us to access.
Oh, they aren't publicly available at the moment. but,
Okay, I just thought maybe on the hub somewhere, or
You could refer to previous
the previous minutes. if you
minutes,
can- yeah.
papers. Yeah, it will all be recorded in there, which is
True.
available on the hub.
you.
Yeah. There's no questions. Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Thank you, councillor Gregg, councillor Bogue. Any further comments? I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. And last on our opened agenda is the tenders let, of which we only have one contract. Thank you so much, Andrew. One contract for the Parkland area for Paul Road. Are there any questions with regards to that? Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brosnan, councillor Mawson. No comments. Put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. So we'll just now be moving into public excluded. I would just like to note that we do have two people that will be remaining for papers within public excluded. Firstly, Mr Doug Ducker, the chair of the TNG Building Body Corporate, will be allowed to remain for the council projects application dome clock repairs agenda item to present to us, and then he will be leaving us and won't be participating in the discussion. And then secondly, we'll have Mr Mark Goodson of Willis Legal will be allowed to remain for the property sale contract report. So with that in mind, could I have a mover and seconder? Thank you, councillor Mawson, councillor Tariha. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. And we will have a brief